Today, at 6:15 a.m., strategic analysis confirms a significant development in the Russo-Ukrainian war. The Swedish government is finalizing preparations to transfer a squadron of Saab JAS 39 Gripen multi-role combat aircraft to the Ukrainian Air Force. This decision represents a potentially significant turning point in the air domain, an area where Russian aerospace forces have sought to maintain dominance since the full-scale invasion. For months, Kyiv has consistently requested modern Western fighter aircraft. The objectives are to defend its airspace, counter Russian bombers launching glide bombs, and intercept cruise missiles and Iranian-designed Shahed drones. The Gripen, a platform recognized for its advanced capabilities and operational efficiency, is now set to enter this conflict. The aircraft is noted for its high performance, including a top speed of Mach 2, or approximately 2,100 km per hour at high altitude. Its operational design provides a combat radius of up to 1,500 km on a standard mission, enabling it to cover vast areas of Ukrainian territory and engage targets deep within occupied zones. Initial reports indicate the transfer includes not just the aircraft, but a comprehensive sustainment package, with spare parts and support equipment for up to 14 jets. This suggests a long-term commitment intended to ensure a high operational tempo for the Ukrainian squadron. While the initial number may be 14 or 15 aircraft, some strategic assessments suggest this figure could expand to 30 units as logistical pipelines are established. This development is more than a material delivery. It signals a profound geopolitical shift, fundamentally altering the security architecture of Northern Europe. By 08:30 a.m., a review of the geopolitical context is necessary to understand the gravity of this transfer. For over 2 centuries, Sweden maintained a strict policy of military non-alignment. This neutrality was a cornerstone of its national identity and foreign policy, navigated through the Napoleonic Wars, 2 world wars, and the entirety of the Cold War. During the Cold War, while officially neutral, Sweden maintained a formidable self-defense force. This was epitomized by its indigenous aerospace industry, which produced platforms like the Gripen specifically to counter a potential Soviet invasion. The strategy was one of deterrence and self-reliance. The full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 immediately and fundamentally altered this strategic calculation. The aggression against a sovereign European nation sent a shockwave through the Baltic region. The perceived direct threat from Moscow rendered the long-held neutrality policy untenable. At 10:15 a.m., we assess the political and military realignment that made this transfer possible. In the weeks following the invasion, Swedish public opinion, long skeptical of military alliances, shifted dramatically. For the first time in modern history, a majority supported joining the NATO alliance. This political sea change culminated in mid-2022, when Sweden, alongside its neighbour Finland, formally applied for NATO membership. This decision ended more than 200 years of military non-alignment and was one of the most significant geopolitical consequences of Russia's war. For the Swedish military, this unlocked new avenues for cooperation, joint training, and weapons procurement. More importantly, it redefined Sweden's role from a neutral observer to an active participant in collective European defense. The debate over sending Gripen jets, the crown jewel of its air force, evolved within this new context. The Gripen is a national symbol built by Saab to ensure Swedish sovereignty. Transferring it was a subject of intense internal debate. Some political factions warned it could leave Sweden vulnerable. Others argued that defending Ukraine was now integral to defending Sweden and proving its commitment to the NATO alliance. Ultimately, the latter argument prevailed, facilitated by a series of quiet, preparatory logistical steps. At 4:30 p.m., reports indicate the logistical framework for this transfer is already being established, moving beyond mere political discussion. Recent Swedish military aid packages detail these extensive preparations. A significant allocation, reportedly 5 billion Swedish krona, or approximately $500 million, has been designated for Gripen upgrades, maintenance, and new anti-drone defense systems. While officially described as maintaining readiness, military analysts assess this funding is directly tied to preparing a specific tranche of aircraft, reportedly 14 Gripen CD models for transfer to Ukraine. Concurrently, the manufacturer Saab has had its maintenance and support contracts extended through 2029. This ensures a stable supply chain for spare parts and technical expertise, regardless of the aircraft's end user. Furthermore, it is confirmed that small contingents of Ukrainian pilots and ground crews have already completed familiarization training on the Gripen platform. This initial training, conducted in Sweden, focused on systems, controls, and basic flight procedures. This groundwork indicates that the integration of the Gripen into the Ukrainian Air Force is not a distant contingency, but an active, ongoing process. By 6 p.m., analysis of the specific variants involved is crucial to understanding the tactical implications. The debate has centered on two models, the older Gripen CD and the new generation Gripen E. The Gripen E is the newest iteration, featuring a more powerful engine, an advanced active electronically scanned array, or AESA, radar, a superior electronic warfare suite, and greater range. However, this variant is assessed as being off the table for immediate transfer. These aircraft are just now entering service and are integral to Sweden's own frontline defense network as it integrates into NATO. The Gripen CD model is assessed as the most probable variant for transfer. These are combat-proven, digitally integrated, multi-role fighters, fully capable of air-to-air and air-to-ground missions. Their key tactical advantage for Ukraine is their design for short takeoff and landing, or ESTAL, operations. The Gripen was engineered to operate from dispersed, austere airfields, or even reinforced highway strips, a core tenet of Swedish defense doctrine. This capability aligns perfectly with Ukraine's operational reality, allowing its air force to disperse assets and mitigate the threat of Russian ballistic and cruise missile strikes on primary air bases. Moreover, Sweden is in the process of retiring approximately 45 CD airframes as it upgrades to the E model, making them available for transfer without degrading its own core defense. The CD model remains a highly capable platform, superior in avionics and maneuverability to many of the older Russian jets currently in operation. At 8 p.m., the strategic implications for the Russian Federation are assessed as severe. Initial reactions from Russian state media were predictable, accusing Sweden of escalating the conflict and acting as a NATO puppet. However, the core military problem for Moscow is the new significant strain on its integrated air defense system. The primary high-value asset in this network is the S-400 Triumph, designated by NATO as the SA-21 Growler, a long-range surface-to-air missile system. Russia does not possess sufficient S-400 batteries to cover all strategic fronts simultaneously. The introduction of the Gripen, a platform designed to operate in a high-threat environment, forces the Russian General Staff into a critical dilemma. They must now choose whether to maintain S-400 density along the front lines in Ukraine to protect ground forces and logistics hubs, redeploy units to protect strategic rear areas, such as the Crimean Peninsula, which has come under increasing attack, reinforce the western border to counter the new NATO-aligned threat axis, particularly protecting the highly strategic Kaliningrad exclave and the Baltic Fleet. Any deployment of S-400S from one sector inherently weakens another, creating potential windows of opportunity for Ukrainian strikes. This pressure is compounded by the fact that Ukraine, with Western intelligence support, is actively hunting these high-value air defense systems. This development mirrors Ukraine's successful asymmetric naval strategy, using cost-effective platforms, in that case, naval drones, to neutralize high-value assets like the Black Sea Fleet. The Gripen, with its lower operational cost compared to platforms like the F-16 and its effectiveness against expensive Russian aircraft like the Su-35, imposes a disproportionate economic and material cost on Moscow. By 10 p.m., the final assessment is clear. Sweden's decision to transfer Gripen fighters is not merely a symbolic gesture. It is a calculated, strategic move that marks the definitive end of its era of neutrality. This action has been carefully planned, with financial and logistical pipelines already in place. For Russia, this development is a profound strategic setback. It signifies a failure of its pre-war intimidation strategy, which was designed to keep Scandinavia neutral and divided. The tactical challenge posed by the Gripen will force a redistribution of high-value Russian air defense assets, creating vulnerabilities elsewhere on the front or along its vast border. The strain on the Russian aerospace forces, already suffering from airframe and pilot attrition, will increase. For Ukraine, the arrival of these jets provides a critical enhancement to its air defense and offensive strike capabilities. The Gripen's ability to operate from dispersed locations makes it survivable, while its advanced systems make it lethal. The skies over Ukraine are now set to become a far more contested environment. This transfer signals a new phase of the air war, defined by the integration of flexible, capable, and cost-efficient Western platforms, challenging Russia's long-held assumption of air superiority. In sum, Sweden's preparations today to transfer Gripen fighters to Ukraine represent a calculated, strategic move, marking the effective end of its long-standing neutrality. This development is a direct response to Russia's invasion, providing Ukraine with a critical enhancement to its air defense. The move is poised to pressure Russian air defense assets, signaling a new, more contested phase of the air war and challenging Moscow's assumption of air superiority.